It is the first time this Pope has been to Africa. 3 countries, 19 speeches, and big issues to address. These issues include poverty, the environment, and finding peace between Muslims and Christians. The African continent plays an important role for the Catholic Church. Pew Research says there are more than 170 million Catholics in sub-Saharan Africa. Both Catholics and Muslims are projected to increase dramatically over the next 35 years in Africa, according to Pew. With stops in Kenya, Uganda, and the Central African Republic, human rights supporters hope he will push for political rights, religious tolerance, and respect for minorities. Large, adoring crowds have turned out to see the popular Pope. Pope Francis put poverty front and center in Kenya. He visited the slum of Kangemi to show his support of the poor. He spoke at the St. Joseph the Worker Catholic Church. Speaking through a translator, Pope Francis said he understands the difficulty the poor deal with every day.
Estoy aquí porque quiero que sepan.
I am here, he said, because I want you to know that your joys and hopes, your troubles and your sorrow are not indifferent to me. I realize the difficulties which you experience daily. How can I not denounce the injustices which you suffer? People cheered when he said that keeping water from people is a great injustice. The Pope said it is a serious problem when people do not have access to infrastructure or basic services. Electricity, schools, roads, and hospitals are human rights, he said. Even studios and workshops for artists and workers. He blamed a selfish minority for holding power and wealth that makes others poor. Later, the crowd cheered as he arrived at a rally for young people at a sports stadium. He stood and waved from his partly open, partly protected white vehicle called the Pope Mobile. Pope Francis told tens of thousands of young Africans to resist corruption. He said, "Corruption is like sugar. One can develop a taste for it, but in the end, it is destructive." The head of the Catholic Church also told the crowd to give up tribalism. Loyalty to tribes are sometimes stronger than political ties in Africa. It can lead to violence like female genital mutilation. While in Kenya, the Pope spoke about the environment. At the United Nations Environment Program in Nairobi on Thursday, he called for immediate action to stop climate change. He said, "In this international context, we are confronted with a choice which cannot be ignored, either to improve or to destroy the environment." His comments come just days before a UN meeting on climate change in Paris. He said it would be catastrophic if nothing is done to stop climate change. In a few days, an important meeting on climate change will be held in Paris, he said. It would be sad, and I dare say even catastrophic, were particular interests to prevail over the common good. Also, while in Kenya, the Pope spoke to a group of Christian and Muslim leaders. He said they must talk about guarding against radical behavior and acts of violence in the name of God. Pope Francis said, talk between the two religions is essential. He said, "Too often young people are radicalized in the name of religion to spread discord and fear." The second stop of the Pope's African tour is Uganda, where his plane touched down Friday. Arriving in Entebbe, he praised the country for its outstanding response in welcoming refugees. The UN says Uganda hosts more than 500,000 refugees. Most of them have fled from war and conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo and South Sudan. Pope Francis said Uganda has shown outstanding concern for refugees and helped them rebuild their lives in security with a sense of dignity. He said, "How we deal with refugees is a test of our humanity." And he said, "The world looks to Africa as the continent of hope." His comments come as Europe and the United States struggle with placing refugees from Syria and other countries at war. This after the terrorist attacks in Paris by Muslim extremists. The final stop on his tour is the Central African Republic on Sunday, where he will again hope to address issues between Muslims and Christians. Many hope that the Pope's visit can bring peace to a country that has seen violence between Muslims and Christians. Some question if it is safe for him to travel there. Since 2013, the country has been in chaos. A rebel takeover led to bloody violence between Muslims and Christians. The Pope is scheduled to visit a mosque in Banji's PK5 neighborhood. Many of the city's mosques were destroyed in violence that started at the end of 2013. It continues to simmer even now. PK5 is the last place in the capital where Muslims can live. The conflict killed thousands and displaced nearly 1 million more. Most of the country's Muslims fled to other countries. The Pope is then scheduled to go home to Rome Monday. I'm Ann Ball.
The Spanish-language service at the Roman Catholic St. Elizabeth Church in New York City attracts a crowd even midweek. Many of the church's members are new immigrants from majority Catholic countries in Latin America. A recent study found that almost 90% of Hispanic Americans have a favorable opinion of Pope Francis. The leader of the Roman Catholic Church will visit the city this week. Sister Celia Sid says Pope Francis, a son of immigrants, understands the needs of Hispanic Americans. He identifies with the struggles on many different nationalities, different countries, and what they are going through, she said. It's a great hope for me to have him come because this city is a melting pot. It is a city built on immigrants. But almost 25% of Hispanic Americans are now former Catholics. Some leave for evangelical and Pentecostal churches. Others just slowly withdraw from the Catholic Church. Father Ambiorix Rodriguez is an immigrant from the Dominican Republic. He was raised in Manhattan, where he is now a priest. Father Rodriguez told VOA that Pope Francis has an answer. He said the Pope advises Catholic spiritual leaders to go out and connect with people outside of the church building. He is telling the church we can no longer stay inside, self-enclosed, worrying about who we have, who is here. But no, the church needs to go out, Father Rodriguez said. Young adults make up the largest group of Hispanics leaving Catholicism. Today, many people under the age of 30 describe themselves as religiously unaffiliated. Elias is a young Catholic Church member who is invigorated by the Pope's openness. He said, "If the Catholics who have drifted are based on, 'Oh, you don't understand me,' or 'It's too complicated,' or 'I'm tired of traditional habits,' the Pope is actually saying, 'You know what? I am moving forward.'" Elias also said the Pope's use of social media to connect with the next generation is one way he is keeping young people invested and interested. Pope Francis is the most followed world leader on Twitter, a popular social media site. His username is @Pontifex. The youth are the future people of tomorrow. They are ones who are going to keep this church alive, Elias said. If the youth are not being influenced or moved by it, you're going to lose a lot of members because it starts there, he said. The Pew Research Center study says that almost 33% of American Catholics are Hispanic. The study also found that Hispanics are leaving the religion at a high rate. In 2010, 67% of Hispanic Americans identified themselves as Catholic. By 2013, that percentage had dropped to 55%. I'm Jim Tedder.
Pope Francis has announced measures to reform the Roman Catholic Church's rules for annulling marriages. Under the new rules, the annulment process will be faster. Pope Francis says the process should be completed within 45 days. A Catholic bishop can act on an annulment request if a couple requests one or when neither side opposes it. Another reform removes automatic appeals after the first decision is made. Appeals, however, are still permitted. The announcement comes after years of criticism of the annulment process. Critics have long said the process can be complex, costly, and often unfair. Critics say the current system is out of reach for many Roman Catholics, especially in poor countries. They note that such countries often lack marriage tribunals, religious courts with the power to rule on marriage cases. Roman Catholic teachings do not recognize divorce. The Church has long criticized divorced Catholics. It says they have no right to end their marriage and later remarry outside the Church. Such individuals are barred from taking part in communion and other Christian ceremonies. In the new document, the Pope stated that marriage remains an indissoluble union. He also says the new rules are not meant to help end marriages, but to speed up the process so that Catholics can find justice. There will be no cost for an annulment, except for the payment of the tribunal personnel. I'm Jonathan Evans.